Kinshasa, a pulsing heart of humanity. A city that never sleeps, its rhythm a chaotic symphony of laughter, music, and the scent of frying plantains. I had been warned about its energy, its relentless pace, and its undercurrent of danger, yet I was captivated. The air itself seemed to crackle with life, a stark contrast to the sterile order of my London existence. My guide Sam navigated the crowded streets with an easy familiarity. He moved like a phantom, his lanky frame weaving through throngs of people, his face impassive beneath the shade of his straw hat. I followed closely, my senses overwhelmed by the sensory assault. This was a city that both charmed and unnerved me. My purpose here was research, a documentary on the dwindling gorilla population in the Congo Basin. A noble cause, important work. At least that's what I told myself to quell the unease that gnawed at the edges of my confidence. Sam, with his laconic demeanor and enigmatic smiles, did little to reassure me. His silence spoke volumes, hinting at secrets buried deep within the heart of this vibrant, volatile city. Sam. Even his name was shrouded in ambiguity. Was it short for Samuel, Samson, or something altogether more exotic? He offered no explanations, his past as impenetrable as the dense jungle that awaited us. His eyes, however, were a different story. They held a depth of knowledge that belied his casual air. Ancient wisdom seemed to reside within their depths, tinged with a weariness that spoke of having witnessed too much of life's cruelty. He spoke little, his words measured and carefully chosen. When he did speak, his voice was a low rumble, a stark contrast to the melodic tones of Lingala that filled the air around us. It was as if he were a visitor from another world, a silent observer caught in the maelstrom of Kinshasa. I watched him as we ate grilled fish at a street stall, the scent of charcoal and spices filling my nostrils. He ate with a slow, deliberate grace, his eyes scanning the crowd, never resting in one place for too long. Was he paranoid or simply cautious? The line between the two blurred in the humid air. I tried to engage him in conversation, to probe the depths of his knowledge, but he deflected my questions with a shrug or a cryptic comment. He was a master of evasion, and I found myself both intrigued and frustrated by his enigmatic nature. Who was this man I had entrusted my life to? Leaving the cacophony of Kinshasa behind, we journeyed deeper into the heart of Congo. The air grew heavy with humidity, the smell of damp earth and decaying vegetation replacing the scent of exhaust fumes and spices. The vibrant chaos of the city gave way to an unsettling stillness, broken only by the screech of unseen birds and the rustling of leaves. The further we traveled, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The jungle seemed to press in on all sides, a living, breathing entity that resented our intrusion. Even the sunlight seemed different here, filtered through the dense canopy, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across our path. Sam, however, remained unfazed. He moved through this alien landscape with the same quiet confidence he had displayed in the city, his senses alert, his every movement deliberate. He was a man at home in the wilderness, his connection to the natural world palpable. I, on the other hand, felt a growing sense of unease. The jungle held 1,000 hidden dangers, both real and imagined. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig sent shivers down my spine. I clung to my camera bag, my fingers tracing the outline of the pepper spray I carried, a small, inadequate weapon against the unseen terrors that lurked in the shadows. We set up camp as darkness descended, a flimsy tent our only protection against the encroaching darkness. The air hummed with the nocturnal symphony of the jungle, a chorus of chirps, croaks, and the distant howls of unknown creatures. Fear, primal and instinctive, tightened its grip on my chest. Sam built a fire, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows that stretched and contorted, taking on monstrous forms in my overactive imagination. He said nothing, his face illuminated by the firelight, his eyes reflecting the dancing flames. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible above the cacophony of the jungle night. Sam simply tilted his head, listening intently. "Hear what?" "A whisper," I said, my skin prickling with goosebumps. "Just now, like someone or something was watching us." He offered a rare smile, but it did little to reassure me. "The jungle is full of sounds," he said, his voice calm, measured. "It is easy to imagine things in the darkness." He was right, of course. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that unseen eyes were upon us, their gaze filled with malice. The whispers continued throughout the night, faint and indistinct, weaving themselves into the fabric of my dreams, transforming them into nightmares. It happened in the dead of night. A sudden commotion, a flurry of movement outside the tent. I sat bolt upright, my heart pounding against my ribs, my breath caught in my throat. Fear, cold and paralyzing, gripped me. The flap of the tent flew open. Silhouetted against the darkness stood 3 figures, their faces hidden behind crude masks. I caught a glimpse of glinting metal, the flash of a blade in the moonlight. Then, everything went black. I awoke to a throbbing pain in my head, and a stifling darkness that pressed in on me from all sides. I was bound, my wrists and ankles tied tightly, my mouth gagged with a rough piece of cloth. Panic surged through me, hot and suffocating. I struggled against my restraints, my mind racing. Where was I? Who were these people? What did they want with me? Then I remembered Sam. Where was he? Had they taken him too? Through the darkness, I could hear the muffled sounds of movement, the murmur of voices speaking in hushed tones. I strained to make out their words, but they were speaking in a language I didn't understand. A wave of nausea washed over me as I realized the truth. This wasn't a random robbery. This was something far more sinister. I had stumbled into something dark and dangerous, something that whispered of nightmares and whispered prayers, and I was trapped. I was dragged through the darkness, my captors moving with a practiced efficiency that chilled me to the bone. The air grew heavy with the stench of decay, a sickening sweet smell that spoke of death and suffering. They finally flung me onto a cold, hard floor. Spitting out the gag, I tasted blood and dirt. My eyes, adjusting to the dim light, struggled to make sense of the scene before me. It was a large, cavernous room, lit by flickering gas lamps that cast long, grotesque shadows on the walls. The air hung thick with the coppery tang of blood and the cloying scent of disinfectant. Metal tables, stained a rusty brown, stood in rows, each one equipped with an array of surgical instruments that glinted under the harsh light. But it was the figures on the tables that stole my breath away. Human figures, or rather, what was left of them. Limbs severed, torsos opened, organs carefully arranged on metal trays. The scene was a macabre tapestry of human suffering, a charnel house straight out of my worst nightmares. This wasn't just a nightmare, it was real, and I was caught in the heart of it. This was the human market, the whispered legend, the stuff of campfire stories meant to scare children. Except this was no story, this was my reality. They kept me in a cage, a flimsy metal contraption that rattled with my every move. Food, when it came, was sparse, barely enough to keep me alive. Days bled into nights, marked only by the flickering gaslights and the distant screams that echoed through the underground labyrinth. Through it all, I clung to hope. Hope that someone would find me. Hope that Sam was out there, searching for me. Hope that I would escape this living hell. I studied my captors, their routines, their weaknesses. They were monsters, yes, but they were also human. They grew careless, their guard slipping during the late-night card games they played to pass the time. One night during a particularly raucous game, I saw my chance. A rusty nail protruding from the frame of my cage became my salvation. Night after night I chipped away at the metal, the scraping sound masked by the cacophony of the card game. It was slow, painstaking work, but each tiny scraping sound fueled my determination. Hope, once a flickering ember, began to burn brighter within me. My moment came on a night thick with the threat of a storm. The wind howled outside, a mournful sound that echoed through the tunnels, masking the scrape of metal against metal. Lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating the cage, and I saw that my work was done. With a final, desperate tug, the metal bar gave way. I slipped through the opening, my heart pounding against my ribs, my breath catching in my throat. freedom so close yet still a world away. Staying low, I moved through the shadows, my bare feet silent on the cold concrete floor. I could hear the muffled sounds of the card game, the raucous laughter, the clinking of glasses, so close, yet oblivious to the prey that had slipped from their grasp. The tunnels were a labyrinth, a twisting, turning maze designed to confuse and disorient. But I pushed on, adrenaline coursing through my veins, the fear of recapture a constant companion. The storm broke as I emerged from the mouth of the tunnel, the rain a welcome deluge that washed away the stench of death that clung to me. I didn't know where I was, but I didn't care. I was free. The journey back to civilization was a blur. Days and nights melded together, fueled by a primal need to survive, to escape the horrors I had witnessed. I was a ghost, haunting the fringes of humanity, my body battered, my spirit broken, yet strangely alive. Reaching the outskirts of Kinshasa, I looked back at the sprawling green expanse that had swallowed me whole and spit me back out. The jungle, once a source of fear, now represented something else entirely. It was a place of death, yes, but also of rebirth. I had gone into its depths naive and unprepared, and I had emerged forever changed. The city lights beckoned, a beacon of hope, and a stark reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond its edges. I had survived, but my ordeal was far from over. The memories, the nightmares would stay with me, a constant reminder of the depths of human depravity. But there was something else too, a burning rage, a need for justice, a thirst for vengeance. They had taken everything from me, but they had underestimated one thing: my will to survive. I would find them, I would expose them, and I would make them pay.